Good afternoon, everybody. This is Spencer Michaud coming at you from the Great Lakes Astrology Conference in 2019 here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And to my right here, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Gary P. Caton of the Hermetic Astrology Podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I am really well. Thank you for having me.
So how's your experience been so far?
This is my third GLAC, I think. This is my third GLAC, and this is the biggest one yet. So it's nice to see people coming out, enjoying themselves.
Right.
And it's been fun. I've already done one lecture. Yesterday I talked about the decans and the tarot cards that go along with those, which I have found to be like a mine, a well or mine, or whatever deep imagery you want to use for not just for magic, but for like spiritual searching, right?
Right. So the decan is explain that. We've got a 10-degree section of each sign, 30-degree sign, right?
Yep, and these go back to ancient Egypt, right? Like back in the day, before the zodiac even existed, before either the sidereal or the tropical zodiac, it was mostly based on stars.
Right.
And the Egyptians were particularly fond of watching what stars are rising out of the beams of the sun at any moment in time, because the sun was like very central to their whole cosmology. And so when a star was being sort of birthed out of the sun, this it's like there was a new god in charge of the sky or something, right? There's a new like power coming into being that you can work with and whatnot.
So this is super ancient. This is like this goes way back to the original system.
Yeah, this goes back more than a couple thousand years, right?
Even predating some of the stuff that we're using like regularly.
And so it was a little difficult for the Hellenistic Greeks to integrate into their system. And honestly, I started out my talk yesterday asking people, how many of y'all have heard of the decans? What about them? It's because when I first started asking about it, you see this table of dignities, and it's got at the top is domicile and exaltation. Yeah, I know about those. Then you've got this triplicity, and what's that? And then way down at the bottom, face dignity. What the hell is face? What is that, man? And a lot of people I asked about.
So it's another face being another word for the decans, right? Yeah.
Yes, face being another word for the decans, and
like a mask on the sign, so to speak.
Like they were specifically thought to have a relationship with your physicality,
right?
To the point where you might be susceptible to certain illnesses because of. But you could also make a talisman or an amulet to change that fate, to protect against that illness. So they were always seen in a very magical light. With going back to the Egyptians before the Greeks got a hold of them, they would put the stars of the decans on the lid of the coffin to guide the soul through the afterlife, right? So there's very deep magical associations that go along with these. And going down through the ages, they got associated with different planets as rulers, right? And so we have planetary associations with each of the decans. For instance, the third decan of Aries, we start with Mars, and then we go in the Chaldean order. The next planet faster than Mars is the Sun, and then Venus, right? So the third decan I like deacon because it sounds like it's a priest or something.
That's a good way to think about it, right? Somebody who is creating the orthodox system for you to live under.
So the third decan of Aries is ruled by Venus, and that's my birth decan. And in fact, one of the earliest in Demetra's book, Ancient Astrology Volume 1, which book. I know you are
I'm into it. I'm
right?
Knee deep into that book right now. I think I'm on her advertising team, like unpaid, right?
It was a blessing for me to see you breaking that down and doing your study worksheet and whatnot, because sometimes I get so busy with my own practice, I had the book for a while and I hadn't even cracked it. And I was like, oh my God, like make an hour and like,
well, and the great thing about her book is that she has like worksheets at the end that give you exercises. And that's so valuable, like being able to have an exercise to learn how to use it in practice. Because a lot of times we're just getting the theory, but the application is what her real strong suit is.
I think that's absolutely, her organizational skills are impeccable, man.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of her really strong gifts. But yeah, and she actually breaks down each one of the dignities, right? And tells you, okay, this is what this one's for, and this is what this one's for. And it's like, wow, like that's what I was looking for. Like, what is this face thing about? What is it even good for? Well, one of the things is it tells you about the physicality of something. So face, right? And it also tells you about a deeper magical current flowing through that thing. And that's where the tarot images, and we were talking yesterday and people were asking like, so do you think that these tarot images were literally come from the decan, the planetary? And I think so. Like, it's pretty obvious with some of them that, you know, as the second decan of Virgo is also ruled by Venus. That's my moon. So I've got 2 Venusian decans right there.
I love this technique, man. This is something when I do my weekly video forecasts, I like to include a tarot card for the planetary placements of the transits. And I do this when I read for people too. And I've, you know, drawn upon like Austin Kopek's work in 36 Faces. He's done amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got Aleister Crowley and
the Golden
Dawn, who are, you know, giving
I'll
us a lot of
pass on Crowley, but the Golden Dawn, I'm cool with.
We had a lot from the Theosophical movement. We had a lot of these associations as well. And it's a nice visual to give to the client.
Yes,
you know?
It really is. And it's like a doorway into a whole nother magical dimension, I think. You know, people were asking me, so can I use these with my clients?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, like for instance, you know, if you're working with a particular planet in your chart and you get the card that goes with that decan, you can do like, you can pull other cards. For instance, I like to do a 3-card spread. It's pretty basic. Pull 2 cards. One is the past, one is the future. And so you get an idea of where am I coming from and where am I going with this energy.
Right.
And it's almost like doing a transit reading, but on a more subtle, you know, esoteric level or whatever.
Well, I think for me, it gives me confirmation on some of the things I'm seeing in the chart. Because it's really, you know, if we think about the chart as a divinatory tool, we're just, you know, using a slightly different system to get to a similar place. So when I do a reading for people, I read the chart, I pull an I Ching for them. I always ask, what does the client need to hear from me the most today?
Nice.
And I do an I Ching. And then I use the decanic tarot cards.
Nice.
And usually that'll get us to the core of the issue with the client.
Yeah, it's a doorway, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're doing it for, right? Is to help that person come to some sort of illumination. Or
and it's something they can take with them. You know, oftentimes when you're finished with a reading or whatever, they have the recording of that reading, and people tell me many times that they have gone back and listened to that years and years, and still, and that's valuable.
Right.
But it also gives them like something tangible to branch out and to re-experience, to re-enter that reading, not just from the point of view of listening passively, but to actively re-enter the experience that you two opened up in that sacred space of that consultation, right? They can, and that's what Jung used to talk about with his technique of active imagination. He said you can re-enter a dream or a vision or whatever. You can re-enter it and see, where did it want to go next? Dream the dream forward. So it's really intense. And like you said, for confirmation, technique that I really love is when you're making astrological talismans, when you're doing astrological magic, you can, after you've done the suffumigation and called in the planetary spirits and had your whole ritual, you can get your tarot deck out and ask, you know, is this talisman working? Is it channeling the spirits that were called upon? and you can pull. I recently I did some Alchemical Talismans for spiritual protection.
Yeah, you sent
and
me one.
that star particularly
with bear hide.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, I figured, it's a little more durable than paper. And the stone, sometimes you can engrave on the stone that's associated, but the stone is magnetite lodestone.
Right.
And I wasn't so sure about engraving on that stone, so I decided to do the bear hide. Yeah,
Sure.
but
yeah, we've seen a rise in the popularity again of astrological magic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was really drawn to that star because my fortune in my chart, fortune is at 26 of Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like those 15 Hermetic stars, that were handed down by Hermes, are function as a group. And you
spoke about this last year at GLAC.
Yeah, I spoke about it last year. We did fixed star talismans.
Made a paper talisman
in the class, right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Actually doing magic live at an astrology conference, right? So that was fun. And I feel like just intuitively something tells me that if in your birth chart you have a connection with one of these stars, it feels like an invitation to me to begin to form relationships with the others of that group, because they're literally like, they function as a group, I think.
Right.
And so
these were the Bohemian stars,
right?
The
Bohemians, right. Yeah. Hermes, Agrippa particularly talks about Hermes said this, right? And he's talking about Hermes as in like
the 3 books of occult wisdom.
Right? He's talking about Hermes Trismegistus, which is a semi-mythical figure that often, I think what it was is that people would, out of a sense of like de-egoizing, the thing, this came from Hermes, right? Like they were essentially saying, I'm a channel for Hermes here.
Yeah.
Like the glory not to me, but to higher power, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I felt like Alkaid was a natural one for me to begin working with, right? Sure. And so after I did the talismans, I pulled some cards, and it was really fascinating to see, like, because for instance, when I did the election, I did it according to the recipe or whatever you want to call it in Chris Warnock's book, right?
Yep. Who has done a lot of good work teaching this material.
Yeah,
like he's the pioneer.
He's been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
I had him on my podcast a little while back, the Hermetic Astrology Podcast. And so, basically what you want is you want the moon applying. Now, some people say you can use the sextile or the trine. I pretty much just use the conjunction.
Right.
Although I'm, if pressed, I think I could be. I think I could use a trine if I really needed to get something done.
Sure.
But so you have the moon applying to a conjunction. Now, why the moon? Because the moon is the planet in the sphere closest to Earth, right? In the Chaldean order, she's the fastest.
Right.
So she's the sphere just outside of the earthly sphere. So she rules material manifestation, right? So she's the one that helps to bring that starry energy that's in the 8th sphere beyond Saturn, the fixed stars. And that's why these stars were associated with eminence, for instance, right? She helps to bring that down into manifestation. So she's assisting in like the corporealization, if you will, of that energy
channel
into to the stone or the hide or whatever you're working with, right? So you get the moon applying to the star, and then you put it on the ascendant or the midheaven, which isn't always possible, right? Because the moon will either not yet be there, or it'll already be passed by the time it gets the angle. So you can't get this every month.
Yeah.
And then you want to make sure it's not afflicted and various things, right? So I had done that, and I had a nice little bonus built in there that I didn't even realize, because the moon was also, I did realize it, because you also want to check the next aspect that the moon is making, because the applying aspects represent the future, right? And it was, she was, hey Sam, good to see you, buddy.
Sam Reynolds, everyone. We'll get him on the chair next.
So she was making and applying sextile to Venus, I think, and that's her sect mate, right? So that's nice.
Yeah.
So when I pulled the confirmation cards, it's a protection talisman. I got like the Knight of Wands, and I was like, Yeah, there you go. That's a nice protector, right?
Perfect.
And
nice fiery character.
I thought, well,
right?
that's pretty much confirmation. And but something was telling me, I thought, and I asked, can I pull another card? And immediately 2 cards just jumped out.
Wow.
And one was the Hermit,
right?
And the other one was the Queen of Pentacles.
Interesting.
The Earth Queen, right? So I think that's the which was unexpected, because it's like, wait a minute, this is a protection talisman, and you're getting like some kind of wealth signature or something, like financial protection,
maybe. It's protecting your wealth.
Yeah, right? right? Yeah. So I was like, that's a nice bonus,
Sure.
yeah. But I think maybe that applying aspect of Venus it was reflecting that energy, right? And then of course with the Hermit, it makes sense because Al-Qaeda is a circumpolar star. It never sets.
Right.
So as it's an ever-present source of like guidance, of like you can always look to the north and see that it's there, and okay, that's north, I know where I'm going, and so forth, right?
And lots of astrology in the ancient world was based on like navigation, ship navigation metaphors.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
So like when we talk about the ruler of the ascendant, it's called the helm. And things like that, steering the ship. So makes sense, and we can still kind of bring
Oiko despotes.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you know the lingo. See, this is why you come to an astrology conference. You can speak the language. There's probably about like I was going to say 300, but with the crap that we're talking about, there's probably like 50 people in the world we could actually talk fluently with and not have these looks like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah,
that's what you should come to an astrology conference for, so you can like geek out and nerd out on all your lingo and not feel...
It really is like that. That's the other thing I was talking about yesterday. We were talking about how the first decan of Cancer is ruled by Venus, right? And how, like, for instance, when they go to Stonehenge around the summer solstice, that's basically a fertility ritual, right? The circle represents the womb, and the sun penetrating that is like the fertilization of the feminine by the masculine. And of course,
the Two of Cups,
the Two of Cups is the card. So you've got Venus, Two of Cups, and I think about it like even on a practical level. If you come together once a year around the summer solstice, and there's a lot of that sort of thing going on, what's the result? Well, 9 months later, you get, but it's at the time of year then in the spring when the earth is capable of supporting that new life. Right. So it's very practical and beautiful as well, right?
Well, this is a nice time of year to have a conference like this, because it is nurturing and supporting of life. And if there's new ideas or babies being born here, I don't know. Is that a part of an astrology conference?
Maybe being our minds are being fertilized. Yes.
Perfect. Idea babies, creative children. I wanted to ask you, riffing on that, we've got an eclipse coming up next week in the second decan of Cancer.
Right.
So I wondered if you had thoughts on, the second decan of Cancer and what that might mean with this eclipse.
Well, this is a total eclipse too, right?
Yeah.
So
I think so. I'm not
I'm pretty sure. I haven't, to truth be told, I've been incredibly busy, and I haven't really looked very closely at that one.
It's at 10 degrees.
10 degrees,
Cancer,
So it's
into the second decan.
Yeah, into the second decan. So if we follow the Chaldean order from Venus, what's the next fastest planet?
From
Mercury.
Venus,
Mercury. So this is a mercurial decan.
Yeah.
So right away we get, and then of course if we have the Two of Cups, then the next card would be the 3.
Right. Abundance.
So yeah, it really is.
And Austin calls it the walled garden.
Yeah, that's an interesting association. I mean, it's Cancer is a really fertile sign, and when you add in a planet that's associated with commerce, like I can see an abundance like kind of theme there. And this would also be like a north node eclipse, right? So there's a new energy that's trying to come into your life that maybe is channeling some mercurial energy, and these 3. What I really like, Robert Place, the Alchemical Tarot. It's the one I'm my main go-to right now, and he talks about those 3 women holding the 3 chalices as well. They could be the 3 fates, for instance.
There you go.
Right. And like the spinner and the weaver and the cutter.
Moira?
The Moira, moire, or however you say it.
Details.
And also like the idea of the triple goddess, right? Cancer, you know, that feminine energy.
Well, I'm going to do it backwards, but you've got the maiden, right?
Maiden, mother, and crone, or like, you know, youth and middle-aged person and elder, you know,
which
that
is speaking to the phasic relationship of the moon, where it comes into being and disappears.
And also the phasal nature of life, you know, the three sort of identities that any one of us, even a man, you know, like I'm 51 now, so it's probably time for me to start acting like an elder, right?
Maybe. Oh, I think you're doing a good job of that.
Thank you.
But with the spirit of youth. I mean, you've got the energetic signature of the warrior, martial warrior. You know, keeping your vitality strong. I think you're doing a good job on that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I used to work with kids even into my 40s. You know, I was a counselor for children, and you know, people used to say, you know, why do you think the kids like you so much? And like, because I'm just a big kid myself.
Sure,
man,
absolutely.
You know?
And nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that in our field here, we can get a little bit serious about like the heaviness of our fate.
And that's okay. That's okay. And you know, there's the you know, getting more serious about the academic nature of what we do. I think that's fine. But yeah, you know, one of the opportunities, one of the opportunities of coming, and it's interesting what you were saying too about the, you know, the yearly gathering. I was reading this piece, and I spoke about this on my last podcast too, about there's different kinds of rituals depending on the social structure that is being reinforced by that ritual.
Sure.
Different kind of social rituals, and so like if you want to bond people who like in a modern society where they don't necessarily even know each other, but they have to get along, like queuing up to get on a plane, for instance. Like, you know, we need to be able to manage that without, that's a kind of ritual. So there's these sort of low intensity but high frequency rituals aid in that kind of togetherness, right? But then you have these less frequent but high intensity rituals like GLAC. It's less frequent. It's only every year.
It is high intensity,
but
too.
It's
it can burn you out. But it's good though. You need that every once in a while because that can sustain you over a longer period of time.
And that's the kind of bonding that where face to face with people, you know, face to face, that it deepens the relationship. So like, for instance, I had a client who was saying, you know, what's going on in the sky? So specifically with this eclipse, to get back to this eclipse that you were talking about, with, you know, you have the south node in Capricorn, that would represent the sort of high frequency, low intensity rituals that bond people in that social way of, you know, you don't necessarily know anybody on the plane, but you have to get along for however many hours you're stuck in this flying garbage can.
Yeah, that's tough.
But then these other rituals, I think, would be more in line with Cancer. These high intensity, maybe lower frequency, where we come together with people we actually know and we deepen the bond. So he was asking me, you know, what, you know, specifically with regard to business. And I was like, you know, I don't think this is about business at all. I think, you know, like, take one of these people you want to do business with, take them fishing. Like, just go have a bonding.
These are soft skills. These are like ways that we can get to know one another. And, you know, from being in the music business for like 20 years, that's how you create relationships. Is you just get to know people and you work with people you like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And you work with people you know that you can get along with. And,
and
in these somewhat informal situations is where you really connect. You know?
Right.
So, and that's a great segue, because what do you have coming up, Gary, besides your podcast? Here?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to get the word out about is about a year from now, we've been out in the evening the last couple nights checking out Jupiter.
Nice.
Super bright.
Go look at the sky, folks. Don't just look at your charts.
Jupiter and Antares are about as far apart as your fist right now.
Yeah.
About 10 degrees as the crow flies. I think longitudinally it's a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Jupiter is super bright, and next year Jupiter and Saturn will be together for this rare 20-year conjunction, and they're both going to be super bright. and we're going to be getting together in Colorado in July to in the really dark skies to witness that and to come together. We're going to be making constellational talismans. Taurus, the constellation of Venus, and the moon are both going to be in the constellation of Taurus.
And what is this wonderful event called that you have here?
Sky Astrology Conference.
The Sky Astrology Conference.
This is SAC 3. This is our third one.
Time. And what is the dates of that?
That it is July, I believe it's 17, 18, 19.
Okay, of 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
And it's going to be in
Moffett, Colorado. Yeah, we have a Facebook page, so you can find us there, and we have a website and whatnot. So if you just Google those terms or check out my site or whatever.
And what is your site?
Dreamastrologer.com.
Dreamastrologer.com. Yes. You can find Gary Caton and more information about the Sky Astrology Conference in 2020.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary, for joining me here today. Welcome. This was great.
All right.
Thank you for laying the knowledge on us.
Always good talking to you,
And we'll have to share some smoked fish out at the SAC next year. Last year, Gary brought his whole thing of smoked fish to GLAC, and it was amazing.
I was like, hey, when in Rome, do like Romans, right? So I was munching on smoked fish while I was here from the lakes and whatnot. I actually went up north towards the Dark Sky Park up there and got in Lake Michigan, and it was really fun.
I told you at dinner last night I want to take you to this place called Manly's Fish Market up in St. Ignace, Michigan, in the UP, because they have this Lake Superior lake trout and whitefish up there, and it's fresh the day they caught it.
It's a date, man. It's a date.
Let's do it. All right. Sounds good, buddy.
All right.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.